So this is day 3 of our online class, and I'll talk about chapter 3 of The Cyber Effect by Mary Aiken, including other information. So cyber babies. Dr. Aiken tells the story of a mother ignoring her young baby because the mother was riveted to her mobile phone. She raises the question, how will this generation of babies be affected by parents' use of eye technology? Infants need face-to-face interaction with caregivers, with attachment figures, in order to develop properly. I've included a link on this slide below to a video you should watch demonstrating how an infant reacts to being ignored by a parent who's using a mobile phone. A child's attachment style is shaped and neurologically encoded by the infant's earliest experiences with caregivers, most importantly during the entire first year of life. Beyond our reading in this chapter, I want to inform you that the evidence for this neurological developmental process is explained by clinical psychologist Dr. Alan Shore in his theory, which he calls regulation theory, which I cover in depth in my infant and child development class each fall. A positive, secure attachment is shaped as a result of consistent and positive caregiving. In this interaction with the caregiver, the infant's brain, most importantly the frontal lobes, is taught how to interact with others as a result of how others interact with the infant. So in other words, we follow the way other people interact with us, and that shapes the way our own brains as infants actually learn how to act and how to control our behavior. This attachment style affects all our social relationships throughout life. In the 1930s, Harry Harlow's research with rhesus monkeys demonstrated that orphaned infant monkeys strongly preferred contact with a substitute fake mother that was covered in a soft terry cloth compared to one that just had a milk bottle attached to it. His research demonstrated that infants strongly desired contact comfort, not primarily food, as Sigmund Freud had argued, in their relationships with others. However, you should know that even when the infant monkeys were allowed to spend as much time as they wished with the terry cloth substitute mother, when those infant monkeys grew up and had their own babies, those monkeys were very poor caregivers. The attachment style that develops in the first year is crucial, but even John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, who discovered and wrote about this attachment process, argued that the attachment style is partially malleable or plastic or able to change throughout life. They said this is the case because infants develop what they called an internal working model. This is what John Bowlby described was the outcome of the attachment process in the first year of life. It is an infant's expectation for how relationships work. It is updated throughout life, but it is most importantly shaped in infancy. In order for this attachment style and internal working model to develop, eye contact and face-to-face interaction is crucial. A study in the journal Pediatrics in 2014 showed that the majority of 55 caregivers who were interacting with their children in fast food restaurants used their mobile phones during the meal, and 16 of them used their mobile phone continuously, when common sense suggests they should be focused on their child. This kind of cyber slacking doesn't happen only at work, it also happens at home, as parents' attention is pulled away from their child care responsibilities. As an aside, I found Dr. Aiken's statement here pretty amusing. Quote, "Am I saying that unless you stare constantly at your baby it will become feral? Obviously not." Close quote. The simple truth is that Given the ubiquity of mobile phones, millions of babies around the world are getting less eye contact from caregivers. Dr. Akin says this might result in an evolutionary blip. Less eye contact could change the course of human civilization. So on this slide, we're going to cover a little bit more information from the cyber effect and then move on to the poster that you see here. So she's talking about the science of mother-child interaction and what this is doing for the development of the child's brain. When a baby is born, each of the 100 billion neurons or brain cells the child has, each of them have approximately 2,500 synapses or connections with other neurons. In the next 3 years, the number of connections increases to about 15,000 per neuron. That makes a total of 1,500 trillion connections in the brain between our brain cells. So the abilities that develop in the first 3 years are crucial to human characteristics. Babies are born with approximately 2,300 visual acuity. That means that what someone with perfect vision can see at 300 feet, the baby can see clearly only at 20 feet. By 2 years of age, babies typically have achieved 20/20 vision. At around 3 months, babies begin to focus on the internal features of the objects they look at rather than the outer edges. And this includes faces, and it especially includes the eyes. Babies after 3 months most importantly focus on the eyes of the face of the person with which they're engaged. And there's a specific part of the brain that's devoted to facial recognition. Now I want to focus on the slide you see here. At a conference I went to this past weekend, I was fortunate enough to hear Dr. Tracy Dennis Tiwari, and she's the last author on this study shown in the poster. And she adapted what's called the still face paradigm to the use of mobile devices. So if I want you to look for the boxes here and arrows as I talk about this study. The still face paradigm was designed to examine infant responses to social interaction cues by a parent. And it consists of 3 phases. In phase 1, the free play phase, the mother and child interact. In the second phase, the mother or the caregiver, whoever it is, they simply then show a blank, unmoving, unspeaking face. This is normally done with a very young infant sitting in a baby chair, baby seat. And then after a period of time, the mother starts again to interact with the child. So what we're looking at here is how does the infant react, the infant or the child, how does the infant or child react to this blank expression on the caregiver? The still face paradigm is characterized by a decrease in positive affect on the part of the infant or child and gaze, that is, they look less at the caregiver, and the child shows an increase in negative affect during this still face phase. And some recovery is seen during the reunion period. All right, we won't worry about the temperamental characteristics of the infant or child here. Just want to see what the distraction and the detachment of interaction looks how that affects the child. So she adapts this to mobile device use. So she talks about how when parents use mobile devices in front of children, the parent is physically present but relatively distracted and unresponsive, which is analogous to the key qualities of the still face paradigm. Increased mobile device use has previously been shown to be associated with increased anxiety in children. Using a cell phone as a metaphor for reduced parental interaction and withdrawn attention, a modified version of the still face paradigm was used in this study to assess the ways in which increased mobile device use might influence children's affect, which is emotions, and their social interaction with a parent. Moving down to the bottom, so this free play phase is normal interaction, followed by a still face phase in which the parent uses his or her mobile phone and withdraws his or her attention from the child and becomes unresponsive to the child. And then they go back to normal in the reunion phase where the parent resumes interaction with the child. So what they found in this study was children showed more negative affect, shown here, the green bar, higher levels of negative affect, and they showed less positive affect. So the green bar here is lower in the positive affect category, and it's higher in that negative affect category. So children showed more negative affect and less positive affect during that still phase when the caregiver was using the mobile phone. Children also showed higher levels of engagement with toys and more engagement, higher levels of social bids. That is, they were trying to get the mother or the caregiver's attention more when the mother was distracted by the mobile phone. So this study clearly shows that there's a negative effect on the infant and child, at least during this period, as shown in the laboratory, when the mother or the caregiver is distracted from interaction with the child. Babies learn best from humans, not from machines. We know that research shows that babies who watch more than 2 hours per day of DVDs perform worse on language assessments. But there are still products for sale that promote eye-tech device use in babies and toddlers, such as the Aptivity Seat and the Aptivity Gym, shown here. Live interaction teaches language, emotions, interpersonal skills, problem solving. Rather than moving about and interacting with the world, when children use eye-tech devices such as mobile phones, iPads, computers, TV screens, this encourages a lack of movement. When their attention is focused on screens, babies are more likely to tune out the environment, including other people. In 2011, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a science-driven policy statement that children under age 2 years old should have no screen time. A search of the American Academy of Pediatrics website today, May 29, 2019, showed the following recommendations. For children younger than 18 months, avoid use of screen media other than video chatting. Parents of children 18 to 24 months of age who want to introduce digital media should choose high-quality programming and watch it with their children to help them understand what they're seeing. For children ages 2 to 5 years, limit screen use to 1 hour per day of high-quality programs. And parents should co-view media with children to help them understand what they are seeing and apply it to the world around them. For children ages 6 and older, place consistent limits on the time spent using media and the types of media, and make sure media does not take the place of adequate sleep, adequate physical activity, and other behaviors essential to health. Designate media-free times together, such as dinner or driving, as well as media-free locations at home, such as bedrooms. Have ongoing communication about online citizenship and safety, including treating others with respect online and offline. Toddlers and tablets. Why is it so common for parents to give babies digital devices? Dr. Akin suggests that there is a common belief that children need to be kept busy and occupied at all times. It is also a way for parents to get a break from constant child care duties. Even if smartphones and tablets do not prove to be directly harmful to child development, in terms of radiation exposure, for example, there is another indirect harm caused by taking time away from things children should be doing that promotes healthy development, such as unstructured play, which promotes the development of imagination, creativity, problem solving, and motor coordination. Playing with digital devices and apps that do not play by the rules of the real world potentially may interfere with the development of object permanence, as explained by Jean Piaget. Object permanence is the understanding that things continue to exist even when they are out of one's perceptual awareness. The magical things that happen in the digital world often violate the fundamental principles of the real world, principles that the child needs to grasp in order to develop cognitive abilities such as understanding object permanence. It is well known that children learn less from a video than from live interactions. This is known as the video deficit effect. Children's attention is not as strong when viewing a video when interacting live. Chris Rowan, a pediatric occupational therapist, recommends only 1 hour of TV per day for children between the ages of 3 and 5, and no handheld device or video game use before age 13, and only 30 minutes per day between ages 13 through 18. I think those are good recommendations, but good luck with those, right? Many children come to school with a digital hangover from excessive use of eye technology before bedtime. What about sleep and electronic media? All light-emitting devices interrupt normal sleep cycles. The brightness of the screens interrupts the production of melatonin by the pineal gland, which is an important aspect of the onset of sleep. Author Sherry Turkle emphasizes that children and adults need to learn how to experience solitude and being alone. In other words, downtime is a natural human condition. Later in this course, we'll return to this idea and the scientific support behind why we need downtime and why it is essential to learn how to accept boredom throughout the day, not continuously throughout the day, but periods of downtime and boredom. We'll come back to this when we read chapters in the book iMinds. So here I include the last of the digital devices that I wanted to show you, this VTech Touch and Swipe baby phone. It is available on Amazon Prime for $14. And it's designed for children 6 months to 3 years old, which, as you've read and you've heard in these lectures, is exactly not what babies actually need during this time. So how may this correspond to the increase or rise in attention deficit disorder? Sleep deprivation is often confused with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The increase in the diagnosis of ADHD has coincided with the rise in ownership and use of digital devices like smartphones and iPads. Dr. Dimitri Christakis found that watching more than 2 hours of TV per day was associated with greater attention problems in children less than 3 years old. Other research shows that specific cartoons and fast-paced media are linked to attention problems. It may be that such images overstimulate the brain. We'll come back to this in iMinds as well. Christakis found that the more TV an infant or toddler watches, the more likely they are to have attention problems by age 7. Thus, this digital overstimulation may be creating a kind of sensory arousal addiction. So Dr. Akin argues that we're experiencing a real-life experiment, a society-wide experiment. by introducing devices to our daily lives and to our infant and toddler and children and teenagers' lives before we fully understand how to deal with these devices. In 2008, France banned programming that was aimed at infants in order to protect them from the negative effects of television. A warning now appears on foreign-produced baby programs shown in French culture, stating, "Watching television can slow the development of children under age 3, even when it involves channels aimed specifically at them." Other countries have also begun to legislate regulations on children's use of iTech. And I found this image on my Facebook feed last night, and I thought it was interesting. You've all heard of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Maybe you could think about JOMO, that is, the joy of missing out, or feeling content with staying in and disconnecting from digital media, from your cell phone, from all kinds of digital technology. And I think maybe some of us may need to work on developing a measure of JOMO. Anyway, that's the end of today's lecture. See you tomorrow.